For centuries, those of African descent were considered property in the United States. Prior to their capture, their enslavement, and their deportation to a foreign land, they were important in their own land, some being of royalty. Once kidnapped and imported into the United States, the African was separated from his native tribe, sold among white men, stripped of their native religion, their spirituality, their children, and they were branded like cattle. This cycle continued for hundreds of years. To appease those wanting to abolish physical slavery some 300 years later, documents such as the Emancipation Proclamation and the Civil Rights Act of 1964 were created. Unfortunately for the African, these laws did not erase the systemic psychological trauma he and generations of his people had suffered because of slavery. It also did not set well with white people feeling they were forced to mingle with the blackies. It bred cognitive animosity, resentment, and dislike towards the very people that probably did not want to mingle with them either. Think about it. Who would want to mingle with the oppressor that has mistreated, abused, and misused their people for 300 years? Right. Legally and partially free, the African did not receive financial compensation for his or his ancestors to create support systems within their own that would address, educate, and assist him in reestablishing himself within a society as a human that considered him cattle. Since I can remember, I have been devoting my energy, knowledge, and training towards bringing awareness, education, and solutions to addressing individual and institutionalized racism. Unfortunately, my attempts in love have indicated how much of a nigger I am misperceived to be based on my outward appearance. Although I have continually been kicked down, knocked down, oppressed, lied on, lied to, assaulted racially and through aversive racism by white America through their purposeful, unequal, and subjective discriminatory practices and policies that are, quote, legally man-made for me and others that look like me to respond in the same animalistic, barbaric, and selfish behaviors that they treated my ancestors and continue to treat my brothers today. I will not allow your negativity, your fear, your white guilt, your brutality, and disregard for human life to change my character, which is based on love, and behave like your kind has collectively demonstrated. Because of my childhood and personal experiences with people like my Uncle James and my Aunt Misty and Cindy's family, BJ's family, I can name all the people that I grew up with that looked like you all but didn't treat me like you all. They treated me with love, respect, and value. Because of that, I have something to compare when you continue to show me through your actions that I am considered a nigger to you. It seems that in white America now, my only infraction is literally breathing while black. Because of his story and your train of thought and your characteristics of your human behavior, I understand. I understand that you are mentally ill because racism is a mental disorder. It's not diagnosed because white men from Europe created and maintained the 7+ schools of thought in psychology, which determines what is a mental illness and what is not. No one, not even the APA, seems to want to address the cultural and racial exclusions that took place from the onset of the formation of psychology. And psychology, if we can be honest about it, they have their hands in every facet of society. And as an affiliate of this group, I can honestly say to you all, white America, we dropped the ball on that. We dropped the ball because we did not diagnose these symptoms to go along with post-traumatic stress disorder. Therefore, you do not know how cognitively distorted and warped you are and your behaviors show. I understand that although perpetual environmental stress of breathing while black in America causes black Americans high blood pressure, anxiety, insomnia, migraines, depression, emotional turmoil, physical ailments, mental fatigue, and spiritual exhaustion, to name a few of the symptoms, because of your constant abusive behaviors, though it's man-made and legal, that no one cares because it's black people breathing while black. But I tell you what, if it was a white person who experienced one of the injustices that a person that has a little color in their in their pigment in America experiences, let's say being attacked by a person on the street, he or she can only experience maybe 2, maybe 4 of those symptoms to fit the criteria of post-traumatic stress disorder. Not only would they receive that particular diagnosis, they probably would receive more empathy, sympathy, medication, and most likely a government check to, quote, help them during this difficult time. However, for the person of color in this country, who more than likely has experienced multiple incidences of trauma, some prompted by blatant racial insignificance and others through racial microaggressions, those slight insults that demean your value, that person, rather than receiving help or assistance, they are looked down at, they are frowned upon, they are labeled as lazy and unmotivated and just want a handout to the very members of the oppressive group that were given the privilege, inherited privilege of not having to worry about breathing while black because of their inherited whiteness. Sidebar: if you are a black person in Amerikka-Let that has experienced anything that I am describing, any of those symptoms, I encourage you to go to www.mirecc.va.gov. There is a PTSD checklist that basically discusses the criteria for this. If you are able or willing to take this test, I am trying to get 600 people, at least 600 people, to take this particular assessment. And I myself will submit that to the APA so that we can examine why those types of behaviors, the mundane environmental stresses that causes people that have some black pigmentation to feel, to see why it is not acknowledged. I mean, I have an idea, of course, but if there are people behind those numbers or statistics, surely they would be willing to at least listen to reason. So, at any rate, that's just a sidebar. Let me say this. I also understand, white America, why you fear black people in this country. Because of the abuse, the misuse, and the brutality your people continually subjected people of color to, you automatically, cognitively assume that every person will retaliate in the same manner. It doesn't help that every time you turn on the news, especially Fox and CNN and HLN and MSNBC, you see images of the bad guy who just happens to be black, which cognitively, again, mentally, makes your already warped and distorted misperception of black Americans worse. Based on your Eurocentric characteristics of selfishness, narcissism, individuality, competitiveness, your overconsumption for everything, including people and land, your warped cognition. You want to think that once black people are given the same opportunities that you yourself, white America, inherited, that we, instead of doing what is right and righteous for our family, that we will think and plot for your demise. Newsflash. Most conscious people of African descent could honestly care less about you or your livelihood to the point where we want to cause you harm. I repeat, we are not concerned about causing you harm. We are not consumed like you about taking. We understand and embrace the whole concept of the village raising a child. We understand that what we sow, we will also reap. We understand that what the least of us has, then we as a collective will be great. I also understand, white America, why your vice presidential candidate for the Republican Party can boldly state, and I quote, "There is too much talk of institutional bias or racism in law enforcement." Right, Mike Pence said that. Now, that same Mike Pence is the same Mike Pence that, according to an article, he was, once he found out how, I guess, messed up the party they were in Virginia. And this man tried to run out or run away from his bus. They had to go and find him and bring him back. And apparently when they found him, he was in tears. He was in tears because he realized what he had gotten into. But this is the very same man that you all are going to try to vote in November. Right. There's a North Carolina congressman elected by the people, for all people. He freely said, and I quote, when he was talking about Charlotte, "Protesters in Charlotte hate white people because white people are successful and they are not." There was a South Carolina judge that was comfortable with sharing his disdain for Colin Kaepernick for not standing up for his American flag, and anybody else that has a problem with the flag. Now, I thought a judge was supposed to be fair, ethical, and unbiased. Well, that's what I get for thinking, huh? Especially in America KKK. There are other examples that I can give, but I think you get the gist. Basically, white privilege, cognitive dissonance, narcissism, and centuries of institutionalized racism has given these people and others like them an arrogance that they feel invincible to say whatever and receive no consequences. I also understand, white America, why you cannot even consider that there is inequality, injustice, and social economic disparities that continue to plague black people to this very day. By you actually acknowledging these truths, this means you will have to do something. And heaven forbid you actually do something for righteousness' sake that may cause some discomfort in your everyday life, even though every day we are breathing while black and feeling that we will be shot down for literally breathing while black. As you can hear, there has been a lot of understanding that I've shared, and this is a person that has been a constant target of racial insults and aversive racism and racial invalidation because she was simply breathing while black. And yet some of you who call yourselves my white allies will question my character, my integrity, my loyalty, which is ironic because if anyone whose loyalty, integrity, and character should be evaluated, your silence tells me it should be yours. But honestly, I don't have time nor energy to focus on you. I have to put all my energy on just staying alive because I am breathing while black. Because my reality is, if I walk out the door, do everything respectfully and in love, I'm still breathing while black, which is in this day and age literally a death sentence, lingering just like the noose of old. I may not make it to the next day, the next hour, or the next minute. Think I'm exaggerating? I'm sure Mr. Scott, sitting in his car, waiting on school to be adjourned, reading his book, thought he was safe, but he was sadly mistaken, huh? So again, white America, with all due respect to you all, it is time for y'all to wake up. It is time for y'all to call it what it is. It is time for you all to talk about the elephant in the room. And I welcome any comments, any questions, anything that you want to share, because we have to open up this dialogue for our children's sake. Because as this picture in these children, nobody is born a racist. We have to get our act together so these children can continue to grow up in a world that this right here is an everyday concept. This right here is an everyday occurrence, because let's keep it real. It really isn't. Thank you.